I'm flying solo this evening. Matt Harmon had to pick up his little creature, his little furry buddy from the vet today. So I'm filling in for him here over the next several minutes to answer your questions. We have a colossal matchup. Actually, this isn't really one worthy of hashtag Tequila Thursday. That's usually the doldrums, the dregs of the keg, if you will, in terms of Thursday night football matchups. So we got a dandy contest on tap between the Vikings, who are going to try to wash off the stench of last week, laying a colossal egg against the Buffalo Bills, who were 17-point underdogs, and of course the Rams, who are going to be down Marcus Peters, who are down Aqib Talib. In steps in Sam Shields. In steps in Troy Hill. Hill only has 7 career starts and 4 seasons in the NFL. And meanwhile, I look at Sam Shields, the guy that's given up north of the 100 in terms of passer rating allowed. So a lot of question marks here. Just my initial thoughts on the contest tonight, and I'll give you my picks here in a minute. Dalvin Cook, the latest news that we got off the wire, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, he is going to be active for tonight's game, but could be on a pitch count of sorts, given the hamstring injury. I have ranked Dalvin Cook RB25 this week. So in other words, really only a flex-only play in 12-team and deeper leagues, or a 10-team league, for example, merely because I don't trust the soft tissue issues. These things can flare up. They're unpredictable. They're a bit bulky. And, if he cuts the wrong way and that tug happens, the back of the leg, he's done for the night. So I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Latavius Murray. It could be 60-40 in favor of Latavius Murray. And here's the thing. A lot of people think, oh, it's the Rams. This is an impenetrable defense. That is not true. According to what we've seen so far this season, the Rams have allowed 4.93 yards per carry to the running back position. It seems absurd when you have Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh in the trenches, but it's on the edge runs, the off-tackle scampers that running backs have tallied some chunk gains against this defense. And when you have a softened back end, again, no Peters, no Talib, I think the Minnesota Vikings could potentially tee off, provided the offensive line can at least play a respectable level of football, which they did not last week against the Bills. They were dominated start to finish in the trenches. Now, getting to the game itself, the Vikings are getting 7.5 or 7 in some locations. I think the Vikings could win this game straight up, and that's exactly what I'm predicting. I've got Minnesota 24-21. I'm on the under at 48.5, and I'm definitely taking the Vikes in the points, and I will have a little action on the money line at plus 274 as well. I think this is a game that's set up to wreak havoc to those people that cling to recency bias. The transitive property does not necessarily apply in the NFL. Just because you go out and you lay a Brachiosaurus-sized egg last week against Buffalo doesn't mean you're going to do the same thing in the following week. Same thing in terms of the success of the Rams. This league varies wildly week to week. So I'm just looking at the matchup. I'm looking at the fact that Kirk Cousins, I think, is going to have a banner effort tonight. You have Stephon Diggs, who, in terms of player props, I like the prop at 72 or more yards at plus 150 right now, according to BetOnline. I like the odds of him catching at least 6 balls, which is 100 plus 100, according to BetOnline.ag as well. I think Kyle Rudolph could have a good game. The over-under right now on Adam Thielen receptions at minus 115 is 9.5, and I think he could go over that number. Michael Thomas is getting all the notoriety, all the acclaim, and deservedly so for the hot start that he has, a guy that's on pace to obliterate Marvin Harrison's single-season receptions record, which is at 143, but so is Adam Thielen, very quietly. So I'm starting all of my Vikings with confidence. Yeah, you may be worried a little about the defense down, Everson Griffin, but there's still Xavier Rhodes there. On the back end, Harrison Smith as well. Trey Waynes hasn't played that poorly. You look in the trenches, Linval Joseph is a man-eater. You pull it all together, and I could see Minnesota pulling this upset off. Now, in terms of predictions for the LA Rams, clearly you're playing Todd Gurley. No question about it. I've got him ranked, I think, RB2 this week. But in terms of the receiving options and Jared Goff, I've got Goff just outside my top 15. I think he's going to take a step back. He's been brilliant so far this season. And we've seen increases, betterment in terms of completion percentages. He's attacking downfield within this scheme under Sean McVay, which continues to add new wrinkles, new twists and turns to keep the defense guessing. I do trust Cooper Kupp. I think the lone touchdown pass that Goff will have in this game will be to Cooper Kupp. I have Kupp projected, if you watch our Fearless forecast, 6 for 58 and a score. I've got Brandon Cooks at 4 for 70 and no score. Again, Minnesota, though, has allowed 7.6 yards per attempt, giving up just 10.1 yards per catch, 61.4 catch percentage, and the fourth fewest fantasy points of wide receiver position so far this year. And then Cooks takes a step back from his 112 yards per game average, which is unsustainable. And then Robert Woods, who was the breakthrough sensation of last week, I think will be humbled a little bit. 5 for 69 and no touchdown for him. Again, this is a very good secondary, and I think this defense is going to get right after being humiliated by, of all people, Josh Allen last week. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. Other news tied to what's coming off the wire right now. Jake Butt suffered a non-contact ACL tear. What does that mean? Well, he's done for the year, unfortunately, and it's terrible timing because of the Denver Broncos matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs in a game in which has got a hefty over-under. Again, according to betonline.ag, the over-under in that game is at 54.5 for Monday night. Jeff Harmon, Matt Lacrosse are going to step in and try to fill that void, but I think ultimately what's going to happen here with the Denver Broncos in this particular game, you're going to have a huge emphasis on the two wing receivers in this game in Cortland Sutton and Demaryius Thomas. Emmanuel Sanders seeing much of his time in the slot. Obviously, Sanders, I think, is a top 15 play. I think DT is in that conversation. And I think this is going to be a breakout performance for Sutton, a guy that's come this close to scoring a couple of touchdowns this year. He got jobbed by the referees a couple of weeks ago against the Oakland Raiders. I thought he was clearly in. They did not call that even after replay, which is almost inexcusable. But I think Sutton's got a great shot at finding the end zone once in this game. Nice flex option. Got a couple of bye teams with Carolina off. So if you're Devin Funchess owner, for example, or somebody in a deeper league with DJ Moore, or maybe Jamison Crowder, for example, he's a nice guy that you could throw into your flex position, maybe get 50, 60 yards and a touchdown out of. I also believe the Broncos are going to be run heavy in this game. Royce Freeman is going to be a point of emphasis. He has to be. It's the only way Denver's going to be competitive. And again, you look at the spread ticket separation right now, 63% of the public spread tickets are on Kansas City. But the line is dropped. So the whales that are coming in, they're pounding the Broncos. The line has gone from 5.5 down to 4.5. The Broncos rank inside the top 15 in run blocking efficiency. Phillip Lindsay maybe in the doghouse a little bit. I still think he's going to get around 12 touches in this game. But I think Freeman being that hammer, he's 6 feet even, 235 pounds, runs a 4.54 40-yard dash, considerable yards after contact per attempt. So far this season, top 18 in that category. Also top 18 in tackles avoided per attempt. Even though it hasn't really shown up in the box score, Royce Freeman has been an efficient running back according to the advanced metrics. So I think you may get 15 to 17 touches out of him this week. I ranked him aggressively as a result of it. Truth be told, I am a sympathizer for Royce Freeman, a guy that I've been hammering that drum for a long time. And maybe this is the week the scale tips in his favor in that RBBC. And it's still going to be an RBBC. You're still going to get a peppering, too, of Devontae Booker. But I have Freeman at RB17 this week at half-point PPR. One spot behind Sony Michel, one spot ahead of Leonard Fournette, who did practice today. But again, I got trust issues with the nagging injuries and a guy that has a hamstring ailment. So for me, that is a bit problematic. All right, we're getting some questions coming in here on the chat. And from Stephen Grise, he inquires, you like Lindsay then this week? I do. Now, I've got Phillip Lindsay also ranked as an RB2. And the other weakness you have here with the Kansas City Chiefs, they've allowed the third most receptions to the running back position this season. So if Bill Musgrave can open up the Crayola box and instead of painting with primary colors goes chartreuse or indigo or a butterscotch, something that's a little bit different, something that's a blend, something that's creative in nature, then you're going to see more Phillip Lindsay as a receiver in this particular contest. And if that is the case, you get him in the open field, that's where the electricity just oozes from every pore in his body. So I think there's a good shot there for 60 to 80 combined yards for Phillip Lindsay, maybe a long touchdown as well. I like both Denver Broncos running backs, and in fact, talking myself into it on this broadcast, I'm moving Phillip Lindsay ahead of Dalvin Cook. Okay, that's how hesitant I am in terms of the Chef Boyardee in Minnesota in tonight's matchup. Though favorable on paper, again, I don't think he's going to get a full workload. He might not even get 40% of the workload. Then again, I'd probably just curse myself. He's going to go out and probably run for like 100 yards and a touchdown. All right, keep those questions in the chat here coming in. In the meantime, let me check out Twitter and hit up some of your questions there as well on that feed. Again, you can follow me at Yahoo Noise, and I'm attempting to pull that up right now. And we have a question here from Benzoe27. Play Cook or wait on Dion Lewis? Now, Dion Lewis, difficult matchup this week for the Tennessee Titans, as the Titans are drawing the Philadelphia Eagles, Fletcher Cox and company, rather inflexible in the trenches, but that could benefit Dion Lewis in this matchup, getting out there on the wings, getting out there on the peripheral, in space as a receiver. The other major news tied to the Tennessee Titans, of course, Rashard Matthews. Granted his release, he's no longer part of the team. People en masse picking up Taywan Taylor, and for good reason. A guy that drew comparisons from Lance Zierlein of NFL.com a couple of years ago coming out of the draft to Stephon Diggs, and a player that's seen 19% of the target share the last couple of weeks combined. So, once Marcus Mariota gets healthy, and he's definitely in a healthier state at this point this week compared to the same juncture last week, I think he's, that offense collectively is going to start taking leaps and bounds in its overall production under Matt LaFleur. They just haven't been healthy, particularly at quarterback, and Blaine Gabbert, a massive downgrade, man. That's like going from your luxury vehicle to a beat-up 85 Pontiac Sunbird, which I used to drive back in my days in high school and in college in Champaign, Illinois. And that thing would leak. It had one headlight that would point up and another one pointing off to the left. It was a funky machine, but it got me from point A to point B. And unfortunately, Blaine Gabbert wasn't doing that in this Titans offense. So, long story short, you played Dion Lewis out of those two guys there. All right, some other questions coming in here on this broadcast. This is the Fantasy Happy Hour. Unfortunately, I don't have a beverage in front of me. It's also hashtag Tequila Thursday. So let the love juice flow tonight. And again, it's really not a matchup made for Tequila Thursday because you don't have to sip on the juice to get through it. This should be an enjoyable contest from start to finish. Lisa has a question for the hashtag Fantasy Happy Hour, and thank you, Lisa, for using that. Thoughts on Rhett Ellison from the New York Giants? I had a tight end need with Reed on a bye this week. I like Rhett Ellison. In fact, I picked him up in a couple of deeper leagues. I play in a 20-teamer, believe it or not. That is masochism at its finest. I also play in a 16-teamer and a 14-teamer, and I picked up Ellison in a couple of those formats as a Reed owner as well. You look at the matchup for the New York Giants this week. I mean, it's delectable. You're facing New Orleans Saints. Defense is in shambles. Patrick Robinson, the starting slot corner, is now on IR. In steps in P.J. Williams, who's given up an absurd amount of receptions already on the young year and just playing a few snaps, a 158.3 passer rate of his assignments as well. He's surrendered. He's a pile of junk. That's what PJ stands for. So I think there's going to be an emphasis on Sterling Shepard, who I've ranked inside my top 15 this week, and also an emphasis on Rhett Ellison. Don't be at all shocked if Ellison finds the end zone again. So I think that's a great call, picking him up and playing him. Very savvy move by you, Lisa, and thanks for joining the broadcast. That one guy on Twitter says, what do you think of Derrick Henry as a trade target? I wouldn't give up a whole lot of equity for him, quite frankly. He is inferior in terms of what he brings to the table compared to Dion Lewis. Dion Lewis is still a yards after contact machine. He's a guy that has got the shimmy and shake in the open field. He's a better receiver. Henry is entirely game flow dependent in this offense. He needs positive scripts to get enough volume to justify starting him as an RB2 or even a flex position. Look, Henry is a freak. He's a modern-day football Frankenstein. His ability, with his speed and size combination, but he's never lived up to the hype. And I've always been hesitant to invest in his services. I do not own a single share of him in any league whatsoever. I've been all over Deion Lewis instead. So I would avoid. There are better trade targets out there. Kenyon Drake is a prime example. I know people are going to say, oh, he didn't do jack squat last week against the Oakland Raiders. What makes you think he's going to do something against the New England Patriots? Well, last time he faced New England last year, granted, he got 25 touches. He went over 190 combined yards and found the end zone. I think they're going to get him going. Adam Gase has to. He is the superior talent in this backfield. He's still seeing 62.7% of the opportunity share. New England giving up 4.8 yards per carry to running backs. His next matchup after that is Cincinnati, 4.6. Chicago will be tough in a couple of weeks. And then he follows up with Detroit, giving up 6.3 yards per carry. So it's a great prime, buy low opportunity for Drake. Might be like a sixer at Keystone Light to acquire his services via trade. So, in my opinion, it's worth kicking the tires on. All right, dude on Twitter says, and again, thanks for using the hashtag hashtag fantasy happy hour. Would you trade Juju for a deal involving Dalvin Cook, or is Cook too risky right now? In a PPR in particular, no, I'm not trading Juju Smith-Schuster. I am flirting with the idea. Maybe this is overly chevosy, but I think Juju Smith-Schuster has got a really good shot at being the number one wide receiver in week 4. Why do I say that? Am I Looney Tunes? Am I hitting the silly sauce? Potentially, but pulling up the numbers here to prove my point, he's going to match up with Tavon Young more times than not out of the slot this week in a game that's got a lot of shootout appeal against the Baltimore Ravens. Tavon Young this season has given up 148.8 passer rate to his assignments, a pair of touchdowns already in 3 games. Juju could go for like $120 and 1 to 2 touchdowns. I don't think that's at all unrealistic. And Juju is defying expectations. A lot of people were saying, looking at the numbers, and they weren't incorrect in their assessment. I was buying into that notion as well, that were his numbers from 2017 sustainable? Well, you look at it with the target share, everything else mixed in, Antonio Brown there. Not really. They really weren't based on fantasy points per opportunity and some of the other numbers that he was tallying. I mean, it raised a lot of questions. But Juju, much like a Tyreek Hill, is such a master of efficiency, it doesn't matter how much of a target share he sees. He gets the job done because he is placed in a lot of exploitable opportunities and a lot of yards creation on his own as well. So my estimation, Juju, you want to hang on to him. I would not trade him for a guy still battling a hamstring injury who's not 100% PPR. I would sit down Larry Fitz. And look, Mike McCoy graduated with a doctorate from whatever fine university he graduated from in stick figure art. Okay, there is no imagination. There is no creativity in this offense right now. When David Johnson gets pulled, so you can chew him out because he missed a blitz pickup on a critical 3rd down and distance late in the game in which you could have won against the Bears, you insert Chase Edmonds, you run a running play and he gets stuffed. That is inexcusable. It is unnecessary. It is unfounded. Yet the Arizona and this entire coaching staff's ineptitude continues to defy logic. David Johnson's only been thrown out wide, according to Graham Barfield, his great work over at NFL.com, 8% of the time as a receiver. You could argue right now, Le'Veon Bell is on jet skis, partying down there in Miami, writing crappy raps, and yet, you could argue that Le'Veon Bell is the best receiving back in the NFL when active, but right now it's David Johnson. They're underutilizing him. They're misusing him. So, and the same applies to Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, the guy's seen 7 targets the last 2 weeks. How? Why? I have reservations about Josh Rosen. So, for those reasons, I go Deion Lewis and Tyler Lockett. All right, hopefully we get some more questions rolling in. Let's see. Nothing here on the Restream feed, but I'll pull some more from Twitter. Eric, thanks again using the hashtag. Do I start both Denver running backs over Matt Breida? In short, yes. Again, I have major reservations about the San Francisco 49ers offense under C.J. Beathard. Apologies, Sir Andy Behrens. I know you're a huge Iowa fan. The only guy I really wouldn't downgrade going from Garoppolo to Beathard is George Kittle. I mean, Kittle and Beathard were roommates at the University of Iowa. They have that chemistry, established rapport. I think Kittle's still a TE1, and even in 10-team leagues. Marquise Goodwin was wide receiver 26 when Beathard was on the field last year as the starter. However, Breida, though he's the co-leader right now with Zeke Elliott, believe it or not, in terms of rushing yards in the NFL, he only saw 12.5% of stacked boxes with Jimmy Garoppolo at the controls. That number is going to increase. Not only that, you may say, well, C.J. Beathard checks down like crazy, checked down more than any other quarterback last year, 31% of the time. That's true. However, whatever uptick in production he sees in the pass game, I think is going to be negated by a decline in rushing production. The offense as a whole, not nearly as healthy, not nearly as nourishing or supportive. So how many times is he going to get red zone opportunities? He's going to have to hit home runs to sustain an RB2 level value. Even starting this week, and you look at the matchup for San Francisco, it's decent. The LA Chargers have underachieved in terms of run defense. Not having Corey Legit in the middle there certainly hurts. Not having Joey Bosa as well. But for me, I think there's just too many question marks. You got to let this play out. I do not go with Matt Breida. I would play both Denver running backs and maximize the matchup. Specifically, the Chargers are allowing 4.52 yards per carry. Again, exploitable unit, but I think the increase in stack boxes for Matt Breida says, hey, we need to pump the brakes right now and just understand, take a step back, look at this objectively, and grasp at the overall environment as a whole. Jason Howell inquires, Kirk Cousins or Philly Rivers this week. Really, it's a coin flip. I've got Phillip Rivers by the slimmest of margins. I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a tremendous amount of success moving the chains vertically tonight. Again, with no Talib, with no Peters. I think there's a really good shot at like 280 yards and a couple of touchdowns. In fact, if you look at some sites out there, the over-under is set at like 295.5 pass yards for Kirk Cousins. So the algorithms are suggesting it's going to be a shootout. I think he storms back with a vengeance, but man, Philly Rivers has got such a delicious matchup. No Richard Sherman, and you look at Witherspoon and Ward in the secondary now for the San Francisco 49ers combined. Those DBs have got up a 140 passer rating and 5 touchdowns to their assignments. So, I think Rivers got a good shot at, 275, 300, 3 touchdowns. Mike Williams got to catch one. And this week, Keenan Allen may catch one as well. I think it's going to be a banner effort across the board for the redheaded stepchild there in Los Angeles. All right, Jason Quinn says, who should I start at my flex in a PPR? Aguilar, Geronimo Allison, Mike Williams, Eckler, Chris Carson, Kerryon Johnson. The PPR element adds a fun little twist there. I think I would go Chris Carson. Usually in these situations, I like to err on the side of the running back. I'm not worried about the hip injury. Should be all systems go. And Arizona's allowed the most fantasy points to the running back position this season. Not only that, but it sounds like the Seahawks are going to get Doug Baldwin back this week. So that's a major shot in the arm for this offense as a whole. Could open some more things up for Carson. And as I said before, I think the force feedings are going to continue by Pete Carroll. They desperately want to continue to establish a consistent ground game with Carson. Could be another 20 to 25 touches, especially if the game script goes positive, which I believe it will against those deep-fried Cardinals from Arizona. Lisa's got another question saying Tyler Boyd or Deshaun Jackson. I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd there. Look, I love Tyler Boyd this week. I was talking about Sterling Shepard. I think Boyd is in a very similar exploitable situation. I've ranked him into my top 20 this week. And the reason being is this. He is lined up in the slot close to 70% of the time this year, which means against Atlanta, he's going to see Brian Poole in coverage. Here's what Brian Poole has given up so far this season. An 80% catch rate to his assignments, 1.21 yards per snap, and 129.4 passer rating. I've got Boyd down for 5 for 76 and a touchdown. A guy that's doing a ton of damage on crosses, drag routes, slants, working underneath, and knowing that A.J. Green's not 100%, his role could only increase. And I think Gio Bernard is going to go bananas as well. I've got him top 10 this week. I think he's a guy that could catch 6 to 8 balls, as Atlanta's given up 36 receptions this season to the running back position, which is almost unfathomable, but that is certainly the case. They're struggling. Down 2 starting LBs and 2 starting safeties. That defense is in a sickly position. Bill Nichols says, quarterback, Brady or Goff? I will go with Goff, actually, there. I have Brady way down on my list because I believe in the secondary spearheaded by Xavier Howard of the Miami Dolphins. And again, they got it. The bottom line here with the New England Patriots is this. They desperately, and I mean desperately, need to get Josh Gordon on the field. And I don't mean like token snaps. Josh Gordon's got to play at least 50% of the snaps, because if not, this pass game is going to continue to be anemic. Defenses have figured it out. The blueprint is very simple. You can go single coverage with Chris Hogan because the separation skills are weak. He's outside the top 60 in separation yards per target right now, according to Player Profiler. Gronk, you just bracket him, and then you force Brady to either go to Philip Dorsett or check down to James White. And that's essentially what he's been doing so far. I think you're going to see a lot of Sony Michel in this game to run against a front that, yeah, it's only giving up 3.5 yards per carry, but they have allowed the 9th most fantasy points to the position. But if Gordon get on the field, even if he knows a quarter of the playbook, I mean, Brady should just straight up backyard football it, in your turkey bowl, just draw it up in the hand and say, Josh, I want you to run a post, 15-yard post. Run a go route. That's a straight line. Run a simple slant. They've got to get him on the field. So that it keeps the defense honest. It opens things up across the board. Otherwise, this offense is going to continue to look discombobulated. So for me, I'm going to go Jared Goff there, though, again, the matchup, not the friendliest in the world. All right, some additional questions coming in here. Mario says, who should I back up Luck with long term? Flacco or Marcus Mariota? Well, I wouldn't back up Luck at all. It sounds like you've got options available out there on waivers. I never roster in a league that's got, say there's 10 NFL starters currently at the quarterback position, sipping pina coladas in the free agent pool. Don't roster a second quarterback. Roster a backup running back or wide receiver. Injuries happen. Somebody falls, the next man steps up, and all of a sudden, boom, you got James Conner on your roster. Or somebody like Kenyon Drake late last year, or Gio Bernard. Injuries do happen. I think you should leave that spot open for a backup wide receiver running back. But I will say this. Flacco has really impressed me. He's number 2 in total air yards so far this season. Number 9 in red zone completion percentage. That is light years ahead of where he was last year. You look at the matchup this week going against the Steelers, getting him 7.9 yards per 10, 311.3 yards per game, 10 total touchdowns. It's going to be 300 yards and a couple of TDs for him on Sunday night. And you look at Baltimore's schedule moving forward. At Cleveland, should be a difficult matchup there. At Tennessee, I would deem that favorable. The Saints in week 7, absolutely. At Carolina, definitely a matchup he can take advantage of. And the Steelers in week 9. Joe Flacco could be a top 12 fantasy quarterback over the next several weeks. I will say this. If Baker Mayfield is available, that's the choice and the proper option to pick up, because Mayfield's schedule, listen to this. He gets Oakland this week, a defense giving up 8.2 yards per attempt. Baltimore in week 5 will be tough. Chargers in week 6 should be tough, but that's an underachieving defense. But it's 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those weeks, here are the matchups for Baker, soon-to-be touchdown maker. Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, KC, Atlanta. Mark it down right now. Baker Mayfield, starting from week 4, ending to week 10, I will project is going to be a top 12 fantasy quarterback. Top 12. Is that overly wavy? I don't think so. I think what you saw was only a sneak preview of what he achieved against the Jets. A guy that's mobile, a guy that's accurate, throws frozen ropes. He's got the moxie and the swag, the confidence, and it's a pretty good offense overall, even though Antonio Callaway is now stretching the field, no longer Josh Gordon, but he's got Jarvis Landry there to go along with David Njoku and Duke Johnson. Hollywood Higgins has been decent. Yeah, I love Baker Mayfield. I really do. I think he's going to surprise some people, and I think he's going to have at least a top 15 effort this week in the black hole against the Raiders. Nacho. Man, I love nachos. Chicken, a little guacamole on there, some chopped tomatoes, big old mountain of nachos. It sounds quite delicious for dinner night. That pairs well with tequila as well. Nacho says, I need two, a wide receiver two and a flex. Robert Woods, Sterling Shepard. You had me at Sterling Shepard. He's a slam dunk for me this week. Philip Lindsay in a half-point PPR. So it comes down to Woods or Lindsay. Again, I'm going to maximize a matchup. I'm an advocate of matchups. Fantasy's a matchup game. It doesn't work out all the time, but it works out, I feel, the majority of the time. And I'm going to side with Philip Lindsay. I think he's got to get at least 12 touches. And again, that Kansas City front line giving up 5.1 yards per carry, knowing that Casey's given up the third most receptions to the running back position as well. Lindsay, highly explosive, getting it done after contact. Bit pugnacious last week, going Apollo Creed at the bottom of the pile, got himself kicked out. But I think he wants to right that wrong, and I think he'll have an explosive effort on Monday night against those Chiefs. So give me Sterling Shepard and Philip Lindsay. Other questions coming in from the Twitter. Jamie says, is Aaron Jones worth a start this week over Kenny Stills? Yeah, I believe he is. The Packers are favored by double digits over the Buffalo Bills. The Bills only have two guys on that defensive front, whether you're looking at the linebacker core or the line, that have registered a positive run D grade according to Pro Football Focus. I think last week was an anomaly. Sorry, Bills fans. I was shell-shocked by it. I don't think lightning's going to strike twice. Aaron Jones getting praise from the coaching staff with his explosiveness. And if you watch the runs from last week, and don't call like me or my colleagues at Yahoo Sports, all you guys do is look at the numbers. All you guys do is look at the box score. Guess what, Nimrods? We watch more football than you could ever imagine. We scout, we break stuff down, and if you watch Aaron Jones's runs, he's always falling forward. He hits the hole hard, just explodes through it. He's got the vision. He gets those appreciable yards after contact. I always use those advanced analytics to back up what I'm seeing with my eyes, and they are functional, believe it or not. Last week he had 3.57 yards after contact per attempt. He is the better running back. He is the best running back in this triumvirate backfield, and I think he's got to prove it this week. I think he gets 15 touches, could be 70 yards and a score for him. So, yes, I would go Aaron Jones over Kenny Stills. Let's see. Jonesy inquires, Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods, or John Brown in a PPR. It's not Woods for me. It's either Brown or Watkins. Matt Harmon, unfortunately, is not here. He would be screaming smoky. And you know what? I agree with him. I think John Brown, knowing the ills, knowing the warts of this Steelers secondary with Artie Burns and Joe Hayden, doesn't matter what they trot out there. They can't stop anybody right now. Schematically, they are broken. I'm going to go with Brown, who's a home run hitter, seeing around 16% of the target share. I think there's a great shot of him exceeding 75 yards and finding the end zone in a game. Again, it could be a shootout at the OK Corral there between the Ravens and the Steelers, really uncharacteristically so. Traditionally, those games are very, black and blue in nature. Ryan Wasaki says, Royce, Freeman, or Carry-On in a standard. Now, if this were PPR, I would have flirtations with Carry-On, who had that breakthrough performance last week. And Matt Patricia just needs to give him the rock at least 15 to 17 times per game moving forward, period in the story. I think he's coming around to that idea, but I'm going to go with Royce. Again, I think he is going to be a centerpiece in the offensive game plan for Bill Musgrave against this weak and just permeable defensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs. 75 yards and a touchdown, that is the minimum I believe that Royce Freeman's going to calculate on Monday Night Football, and that's my pick. Randall says, half-point PPR, Brandon Cooks or T.Y. Hilton? I've got a slight advantage there in a half-point PPR with T.Y. Hilton. Again, I've got doubts about Andrew Luck throwing the ball beyond 15 yards consistently and accurately, but Hilton's still seeing a huge amount of the targets. He's averaging 10 targets per game, 59.7 receptions or receiving yards per game, 5.7 receptions per contest. Houston giving up 7.9 yards per attempt. And Jonathan Joseph right around a 112 pass rate in his assignments. Slight advantage there at T.Y. Hilton. I think he'll have more volume overall in that particular contest. All right. Jacob inquires, James White or Sony Michel? Jacob, of course, reaching us on YouTube. I'm going with Sony Michel here. Look, was seeing around 49% of the opportunity share. That number's going to spike now that Rex Burkhead's on IR. Yes, the Dolphins are very good against the run in terms of YPC, right around 3.5 yards per carry allowed. But as I mentioned before, they've given up the 9th most fantasy points to the position, a couple of touchdowns. For me, Sony, I think, is going to see probably at a minimum 15 to 17 carries in this game. They may really want to try to emphasize the run. The New England Patriots to add that balance. He needs to get better, though, in terms of driving the legs after initial contact. They're only averaging 2.17 yards after contact per attempt. Only force a missed tackle 16.7% of the time. But I'm going to err on the side of volume here compared to James White. Though James White, the guy that gets a lot of action there in the red zone as a check down option for Tom Brady. But for me, Sony Michel is the pick. Taylor Collins says, would you trade Jai for Sony Michel? 10,000%. Make that deal now. Jai is dealing with a fracture in his back. This is a multi-week injury. Now, he's grinding his teeth. He's got to grit through it the best that he can. But Doug Peterson, knowing the physical limitations of Jai, we know that Peterson is not shy about spinning the roulette wheel at the running back position. This is only going to complicate matters. You're going to see Wendell Smallwood. You're going to see Josh Adams. When Darren Sproles is back, you may see Darren Sproles. I mean, it's Corey Clement's going to be heavily involved. Good luck trying to guess what Doug Peterson's move is going to be. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of Jai because he's not healthy. And Sony Michel, there's only one direction he's pointing right now, and it's up, up, up. So there you go. Alberto says Seahawks or Rams D. Oh, dude, you got to go with the Seahawks. Josh Rosen, first NFL start. They're going to throw everything and the kitchen sink at the rookie in terms of blitzing. I think the Seahawks do some crazy damage in that game defensively. They're a top 5 unit. And the Rams, again, down there, 2 starting DBs. They're going to have all kinds of problems trying to contain Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. And that's why I'm picking the Vikings. Yes, I'm taking the Vikings 24-21 in that contest. Caleb Eves, half-point PPR. Dalvin Cook tonight or Royce Freeman on Monday? Royce Freeman. He's healthy. And again, got to be a point of emphasis. You cannot trust Dalvin Cook if you have a viable crutch to lean on, and the Rolls-Royce is certainly that kind of player. Vesey Dundee says Cooks, Diggs, DT, Antonio Callaway, half-point PPR. Start Cooks, question mark. No, I don't start Cooks. I start Stephon Diggs out of that group. And my second choice would be Demaryius Thomas. In fact, I would have Cooks dead last. I prefer Antonio Callaway ahead of him. Diggsy, I've got down tonight. I fearlessly forecasted him for 6 for 67 and a touchdown. Again, you got to take advantage in production, especially going from Talib Peters to Sam Shields and also to Troy Hill, who's not had a ton of experience as a starter at the NFL level. Jordan Householder on YouTube says, Kenny Golladay or Sterling Shepard at the flex. Also, should I start Dalvin Cook or Marshawn Lynch? Again, I'm not playing Dalvin Cook. I would go with Marshawn Lynch, though the matchup is difficult against an underrated front line of the Cleveland Browns. And I'm going Sterling Shepard over Kenny Golladay. Again, Brian Poole, I'm sorry, referencing the wrong guy. Brian Poole drawing Tyler Boyd. But in that game, you're looking at a matchup without Evan Ingram. I'm getting distracted by my son who's playing drums very loud and next to my studio right now. So bear with me a minute. PJ Williams, 158.3 passer rating allowed to his assignments. And I think Shepard takes huge advantage. I got him down for about 80 yards and a touchdown this week. Start all your Giants. And Eli Manning could surpass 300 yards. So again, Sterling Shepard and Marshawn Lynch for you, Jordan. All right, let's get a couple more questions here before we call this a show. Tim says, Cook, Kupp, or Lindsey in a standard league for my flex spot. Again, I think Cooper Kupp finds the end zone, but I'm going to go with Phillip Lindsay. Add a little spice to Monday night, and again, take advantage of that matchup against that advantageous Kansas City Chiefs defense. Luke 27 says, who should I start, Rosales, or for me, I'm going to go Kirk Cousins again. Of course, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, yahoosports.com. And also watch the Fantasy Football Hour. It's my television show, which I created, I produce, I write, I co-star on it with my excellent colleagues, Lauren Gardner and Nate Lundy. We are at over 95 million households across the country on regional sports networks. So check your guide and your channel listing as well, because the episode, I believe, airs across the country today. So, and will rerun all the way up through kickoff on Sunday, the Fantasy Football Hour. Again, please check it out. 50 names covered in 1 hour-long show. That's a wrap. Good luck tonight. Rams, Vikings. Hammer the Purple People Eaters. And I'll catch you on the flip side, Team Huevos.